Hello, I'm Juliana, Olayinka, the director of IORMA Africa. What an interesting 2020 it's been, obviously for all of us across the world, but most especially for Africa. We started off the beginning of the year right here where I am in the United Kingdom. Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, used his first international platform to host hundreds of African ministers, leaders, heads of state, business professionals, captains of industry. And what he wanted to show Africa is that Britain was ready to renew their relations. I know we're only a couple of days from Britain departing from their biggest trading bloc, but the UK have decided to really tap into the wealth of the Commonwealth, and Africa being one of those most important trading partners. But how is that going to pan out? If we look at some of the recent statistics, in 2018, trade between the UK and Africa was valued at about $48 billion. If you look at Africa's biggest trading partner, China, trade between the two of them in that same year was worth $208 billion. So there is a long way to go. We were expecting some really interesting updates throughout the year, but by the time those leaders got back to Africa, COVID-19 struck. Once coronavirus really took a grip of the entire world, there were so many different aid agencies, particularly the United Nations, really worried about Africa. A lot of people are expecting to see millions of bodies lined up on the street. That just hasn't happened. I think scientists are still trying to crack their brains as to why the pandemic didn't impact Africa as much as some observers had expected it to, because we know it doesn't have anything to do with the weather. It'll be interesting to see just how Africa has managed to survive the coronavirus, and whether the West can take some tips on how they can survive pandemics like this in the future. We do know, of course, that we have a vaccine that has been rolled out now, but we are not expecting this vaccine, particularly the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, to make its way across Africa. One, they can't afford it, but number two, do they need it? I believe in 2021, a lot of global scientists will be looking at the way doctors and the medical world reacted to COVID-19 on the continent. One of the two areas that I believe COVID-19 has really kind of accelerated some platforms that the global north have already been using in Africa. One is EdTech. The other is telehealth. EdTech has been absolutely phenomenal this year as exams have been cancelled. So many people, of course, have been working away from the classroom. And this has really given a lot of young technology entrepreneurs an opportunity to really showcase their platform. There has been a massive upsurge in a lot of middle-class households using educational technology to supplement the learning objectives for their children. And this has been wonderful. We've been seeing lots of investment, particularly from Silicon Valley tech giants who want to, stamp their foot on the continent. But the huge issue now is there are so many, in fact, millions, 350 million school children that just cannot access this technology. They're in really remote villages, they're in remote places, but there is a need to be more online. We've seen this also with telehealth. Now, telehealth applications have been available for the past 10 years, and particularly in Africa, there have been a lot of really successful telehealth, e-health platforms that diaspora doctors that are doing really well, working in America, working in Britain, that have been using their services on the continent. But again, exactly the same with EdTech. In some regions, if you've got the money, you've been able to adopt this, but there are some people that just don't have that infrastructure, that technology that they need. It'll be interesting to see whether EdTech and telehealth and the surge we've seen during the pandemic will last into 2021, or will it be a flash in the pan? I doubt it will be a flash in the pan, because as we all know, we're all doing more and more online, but it's pretty difficult if you're in a continent of over 1 billion people and more than half of you don't have access to that technology. as Africa tries to bridge the gap between the global north and the global south, one of the ways they've been doing this is, through borrowing money. And one of the major concerns, I think, for a lot of observers is Africa's growing debt crisis. How long can this continue before it starts trickling down to those who are supposed to be the future of Africa, those 60–70% of individuals who are under the age of 25 but will grow up with this crippling debt? There was a recent G20 meeting, and the heads of states did say that they are going to continue allowing a little bit of time before Africa has to pay back this debt. But for how long? The relationship between China and Africa is a topic of much concern. We know that billions upon billions are owed to Africa for infrastructure projects in building hospitals, in building schools, in building roads, but at what cost? As Africa will soon become home to the largest area of people in the world, are they going to be able to sustain themselves while having to pay back what has been some really crippling debt monthly repayments? I think a lot of people are going to be focusing on that in 2021. As we've all been stuck at home for several months during the year, e-commerce has been a huge benefit, a huge sigh of relief for all of us. It's convenient, it's easy, it's practical. Going into next year, I believe Africa's e-commerce economy is going to be something that a lot of people are going to be focusing on. Africa has managed to leapfrog. Africa has managed to get a lot of the market traders, because let's not forget about the informal economy. Depending on which reports you read, some would say that the informal economy, so the economy that nobody can really account for, is really what is sustaining people. And as people haven't been able to go to work, people have had to stay at home. Many of these individuals, these market traders, these women that usually sell outside of their house, they have been going online. They have been starting to trade online. A lot of investors are now looking at that data. A lot of investors are now wanting to look into the informal economy and see how they can use this economy to drag millions of people out of poverty, to start looking at the ways Africans eat, the way Africans shop, and the way African consumers like to consume their goods. Going into 2021, I think the e-commerce, which I believe, according to the World Bank and Facebook, is going to be worth over $2 trillion by 2025, is something we'll all be talking about. Africa is home to 1.3 billion people, and the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, which has been ratified and should be going live in January 2021, is something that the world is going to be looking at. This is going to be the first time there will be free trade across borders. Lots of local traders, local sellers that typically would rely on China, would typically be relying on other countries to purchase those goods, will be able to do it together. Please stay tuned, because IORMA Africa over the next couple of months are going to be doing so many webinars. We're going to be speaking to so many captains of industry, as well as heads of state and African Union representatives, about this monumental change. This is the first time that Africa will really be able to cement themselves on the international scene, will be able to compete with other trading blocs around the world to finally lift millions of people out of poverty and trade with themselves. The future really is Africa.